หลายๆคนน่าจะเล่นกีตาร์อะคูสติกกันนะครับไม่ว่าจะเป็นสายไนลอนแบบที่ผมถืออยู่หรือเป็นกีตาร์สายเหล็กนะครับปัญหาหนึ่งของการเล่นกีตาร์อะคูสติกก็คือเวลาเราเอาไปต่อกับแอมหรือไปต่อตรงแล้วเราไปเล่นจริงเนี่ยเสียงมันแบบมันไม่เป็นอย่างที่เราต้องการนะเพราะฉะนั้นเดี๋ยววันนี้ครับผมมีโอกาสพิเศษมากๆเลยที่จะพาทุกคนไปคุยกับผู้ที่สร้างแอมอะคูสติกที่เป็นกระแสไปทั่วโลกนะครับเป็นที่ยอมรับไปทั่วโลกมาในช่วง30 ปีที่ผ่านมานะครับวันนี้เขามากับแอมใหม่ของเขานะครับวันนี้เดี๋ยวเราไปเจาะลึกเรื่องแอมอะคูสติกกันครับสวัสดีครับทุกคนตอนนี้ผมอยู่กับคุณอูโดโรสเนอร์นะครับคุณอูโดเนี่ยก็เป็นผู้ที่บุกเบิกวงการแอมอะคูสติกนะครับตั้งแต่ยุค 90 นะครับกับแอม AER แล้วก็ในไทยเราเนี่ยผมเข้าใจว่าในช่วงยุคปี 2000 เนี่ยทุกคนก็ได้ยินได้เล่นได้ฟังเสียงแอม AER กันทั่วหน้าตอนนั้นเป็นแบบผมอยู่มหาลัยเนาะเป็นเทรนด์มากๆเลยว่าทุกคนก็ที่เล่นอะคูสติกเล่นรีเคิร์สไตล์เนี่ยก็ต้องใช้ MAR นะครับวันนี้ผมมีโอกาสพิเศษสุดๆเลยที่จะได้คุยกับคุณอูโดปัจจุบันเนี่ยคุณอูโดได้ออกมาทำแบรนด์ตัวเองแล้วนะครับกับตัว Udo Roesner Amp นะครับแล้วก็เดี๋ยววันนี้เรามาเจาะลึกเรื่อง Amp Acoustic กันครับ Hello Udo
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you again.
To be back. And nice to be here again. Great welcome and warmest welcome to everybody in Thailand. And hope that the hard times we had all run through, like COVID and a lot of other things, has not diminished your joy in playing music. Mm-hmm. That's what we are all here for.
We talked before we set up the camera. A good side of COVID, so you have time to do a lot of things, research.
Exactly.
You know.
And I got back a little bit into playing myself, which I almost forgot about just generating, testing signals and playing in a certain style that the equipment is really working at its hardest. So I forgot almost about the beauty of music myself. So I'm very grateful that I could come back a little bit.
So apart from your background in engineering, because you're building an amp,
no, absolutely not. I don't have an engineering background at all. Not at all. Mm-hmm. I have rather a background which is in social science, history. So that's a completely different background. But I'm connected with it for many, many years, and I have the pleasure to say that I was surrounded by absolutely fantastic engineers, which were also always a little bit on both sides, you know, because if you allow the little deviation, we do so strongly believe in science. And we so strongly believe in things that are countable and that can be clearly differentiated. Unfortunately, I have to say, in all my life experience, I don't know anything in life which is like that. It's neither black or white or one or two. It's always in between. So it needs a very, very complex approach. And if you find engineers which are really interested in opening up to more complex issues like music, for example, that's a real benefit. So I was very lucky with Michael, my partner, and with Herbert, the other engineer, that we were a sensational team at the time.
Yeah. So a little bit about your background on music. You are a classical guitar, nylon string player, right?
I was classically trained as a kid, but I dropped it after, because when you think you get adult and you want to do party and all that stuff, I got more different. But I witnessed the change, let's say, in guitar playing when all of the American and English folk-based music came over to Europe. Like people like Davy Graham, like John Renbone, many people that adopted the American styles of what we called at the time fingerpicking. And that was taught, and that was actually a television course that I spotted, and so I dropped the classical guitar for quite a while and got into fingerpicking, steel string, and I played steel string for decades until now. Lately, I have to say, I've completely lost interest again, and I'm completely back into classical.
We meet many times in like the past 10 years, and we know you as the father of the AER, and that time also Tommy Emmanuel, one of the greatest steel string guitar player, also came to Thailand, and he always used your amp, and now he also used your amp, your Udo amp, right? That's the steel string, but on the nylon string, you also do a lot of project with Mr. Haki, Kun Haki, right?
Kun Haki and I, we have done quite a lot of things together, and there is a German guitar maker, Armin Hanika, that I'm working with very closely, and we are presently at a topic together at a project, because I think nylon string needs to be a little bit more highlighted for the general public as well, because it's such a joy to play. It's not only like classical with black suit and you know, it is a huge range, and folk music in many parts of the world was connected to nylon. Look at the whole Spanish world, flamenco, all of that. Wow, what a horizon. And so it's fantastic. But it is a little bit like left aside, you know, not in the conservatories, not in the universities, taught at an extremely high level, and talented players, unbelievable, completely different. But we want to do something, and you know, from the traditional teachers, there is a lot of negative impact against any way of amplifying any changes on the instrument. Ooh, it's like a very holy cow. And this changes a little bit at the moment. So we think it's good time to hopefully open up the classical thinking towards a little bit different, a little bit technology approach.
I think from like the classical, it's very hard to amplify the good sound and also the acoustic. It's harder than the electric guitar sound.
Absolutely right. The instruments are way more sensitive. The sound colors that you can generate are huge in comparison to steel string. Let's say we are not in the condition anymore that rooms are specially designed for music. We are in function rooms or big theaters. So we need to have sound reinforcement systems, and not everything is perfect or good. So for the performer, actually, there's a kind of an additional problem to adjust to amplification. When he's playing acoustically, he is the source of the tone, and he's projecting the tone into the whole. When he's playing with a Pro Audio system in a big hall, he's not in the center of the sound anymore. So he has a lot of dislocation issues, and you know how delicate it is and how concentrated the people are to not play the piece perfectly, but to get even the tiniest little detail, sound, color, everything right. So we are working again, like always, with trying to get a full image of all the different problems and issues that you need to address to provide something which then can be a good working platform.
I think it's a different experience, because I play electric more. Once I start to learn the electric guitar, every time I practice, I hear the sound from the amp. So when I practice and when I go for a gig, a live show, it's the same experience. But for acoustic, when we practice, the sound comes from our acoustic guitar. But once we get on the stage, it's totally different. And I think some of the players cannot play at the first time they hear things like that.
They're irritated. This is why the acoustic amp has a completely different demand. It needs to reproduce the instrument fully, without adding anything. It's not a part of creating the tone like an electric guitar amp. You know, you need a Fender and a Marshall for certain tones. On the other hand, it also needs to fill the room completely, so that you as a player, you have the feeling that you are encircled by it, and thus kind of the center of it. This is why, for example, volumes are also very critical. Most people play way too loud. It's rather listening to what the acoustic does and then topping it a little bit with the amp. That's most of the times more than enough.
What is your ideal amplified acoustic sound?
The ideal?
Yeah.
Let's say it's very easy to describe, because all and everybody of us has the same feeling. When you get lost in something, that's exactly what I'm looking for. You know, so let's say most of the time I'm not listening to the amp because I'm playing it as well, right? So when I start playing with the amp and I immediately I'm on a journey playing my music, you know, feeling that what I want to express, I can express, and I be enchanted and embraced by the sound, so that the sound drives me even further. That's what my aim in sound is.
I think that was a very difficult thing to do.
Absolutely.
Because like from my experience, I love the acoustic guitar sound. Still, I play steel string, it sounds good. When I'm miking it, listen to the monitor, it sounds good. But every time not every time, most of the time when I use the pickup system, put it into the console or into the DI or whatever, or the acoustic amp, it sounds totally different from the sound that I like when I play acoustically. So there are many factors, right? Yeah, that make the sound different.
Yeah.
And some of but there are a way that you can turn everything to your like ideal acoustic
Yeah,
sound.
and one very simple approach is that less is sometimes way more. The less equipment you have, the better it is. Or you have to also decide what you actually want to do. If you like technical things and digital gadgets and all these things, and you like to be on your own digital workstation and do stuff, fantastic. That's a different cup of tea. Then I would advise you get into the digital world as quickly as possible, right?
Yeah.
Convert the signal directly AC, and you are in the digital world, and do everything and convert one time again to the analog world, and you're done. But that's something completely different, because you will never ever achieve the liveliness and the punch and the directness that you get from an analog signal. You will never get it. So if you don't get the difference because it's not important for you or whatever, you know, then this is completely fine. You still can get a nice sound. That's not a question. But bear in mind, when we are in the digital world, the maximum is not our pain level, which we have in SPL, or below the pain level, the annoyance level. The maximum level in the digital world is what your equipment can hold before it starts to distort.
Distortion,
and that's dB full scale. That's it. And you record, so we generally stay 10, 15 dB below dB full scale. And because that reduces the dynamic range. I mean, it's pretty quiet. You can still say, well, if my level is, if I record at minus 15 and I go down to whatever, minus 105, before the noise actually starts, you still have 90 dB or whatever signal to noise ratio, which is okay. And you can make it loud because you have amplifiers. But it is not a lively tone.
Agree.
Yeah,
that's why
lively.
I still like this day I still try to play with the tube amp and also on the acoustic. We just try the amp and with your secret pickup system, and it's like totally new experience for me, and that's all totally analog. And it's all about the energy that we hit the string, and that energy transfer to the amp, to the speaker, and then move the air until it come back to our ear. For like the all physical setup like this, no converter, no digital. The sound come from the pickup or the transducer that convert the acoustic sound into the signal, electric signal, and send to the amp. And then you got the like preamp, Poweramp, and the cabinet and the speaker, right? So can we start from the pickups and transducer? Can you explain more about all these things? There are many type of them. What is the good and bad of like the famous one?
There is not so many different types because there's not so many materials which do the job. Basically, you have to differentiate between, if you want to capture the airborne tone, then you are in the microphone section, or you want to capture the body-borne tone, then you can use sensors, whatever. And then you can question yourselves, well, there's a hell of a lot of technology. You can take, optical measures and to see the vibration and turn it into an electric usable signal. There's a lot of high-tech partially. Most common and most affordable are piezo sensors. There's not many people that make the material in the world, right? So there's this big industry producing companies that make these materials. And they are not made for musical instruments. That's, again, just a small portion. So the question is, if you do take the effort and check out the materials to their audio qualities. Most people check out the systems due to their technical qualities. And when you think about a sensor, then and the piezo is a sensor, then the sensor job is to sense what it is supposed to sense. And generally, every kind of material, every piezo thing, if it is foil, if it is compound, if it is mesh, if it is crystal, whatever it is, everything senses something. Good. And if the sensing is good enough because it is an impulse and the impulse should generate a reaction somewhere, fine, you can use whatever you want. Not everything has a sound quality or differs in it. So when you look at it from the audio point of view, then you have to think, how can I make the sensor audibly real so that I can really evaluate it? Well, there is ways to do that, and you can take audio recordings and measurements of the sensors, and then you see differences. Simply differences. That doesn't say that it sounds better or worse, it just says there's different. And at the end of the day, with all measurement, with all attempt, hard or fake, doesn't matter. You, as the player, decide if you like it or not. And if you like it and I think it's terrible, that's a completely different thing. It's completely legitimate. So there is no measure over us, no meta instance who could say this is good and everything else is bad. No. So I try to start from the very, very bottom. Or basic, or from the start. So I've done some research on the materials of the pickup materials. The more I have researched and studied about it, the more I'm convinced that full crystal is the most advantage. Has the most advantage. Simply speaking, it has a very big signal. And when you have a big signal, it's way easier to modify this when you reduce certain parts and you still have a big signal. Instead, you have a small signal and you have to add the changes, because this adds noise and electrical results that you do not want to generate, that you do not want to have. I know that they are a little bit more complicated to deal with, especially when you focus production. You have to have a bridge, you know, the bone inlay has to be modified a little bit. You have to have additional space in your construction, and let's say you have a balance issue in some cases that the strings are not individually even, and all of these things you have to address, which is just cost and money and time in the industry. This is why other concepts I think are preferred. They have with less gain, because put it like this: if you have only less gain available, the the differences are less audible. So you think it's way more even though in percentage it has pretty much the same effect. If you have a real strong signal, 100%, and just one is only 80%, oof, that's 20% difference. And in value also 20. If you only have 50, then the 20% in value is way more, still way less. It's still like 20%. Right?
But like in digit 10, but 20%. Right.
So it is easier to deal with, and many people are happy with it. I mean, okay, if you're happy with it, it's fine. So to me, it is crystal only, and the second is I always combine piezo crystal with microphone with condenser capsules. Not in my easiest. I have a few inboard end pin systems and external ones. And the end pin system, there's a single one, the dot, which looks like a dot when you look at it from the back, which is just a pure piezo sensor. And the hash, which looks like a square, like a hash, that has microphone and piezo sensor on board.
So conclusion that there are two types, like a sensor and a microphone, right? And you prefer to mix them together?
Yes, I do prefer, but you have to pay full respect to the different capabilities and needs that the individual signals have. And I want to keep them completely separate, so that you can really turn them off. You know, in many cases there's some kind of blend all the time, and to my opinion you have to adjust the microphone, pre-adjust the microphone in a sense that it really can live inside the body of the instrument, because number one, the sound inside the body has nothing to do with the sound of the guitar outside of the body. That's a little bit tricky. The second point is, we have hardly any understanding how noisy it is inside a guitar. Very, very, very loud. So the microphone has to be able to handle
very high pressure.
Yes, exactly. As the signal is a complex signal, so the actual distortion is masked. So you do not necessarily hear it right away. But as we mentioned the annoyance factor before, there's so much about annoyance which is important. There can be a good sound and you feel like you're bathing in it, and suddenly you feel a little whatever it is. And Maybe it's just because there's a little bit too much distortion in the signal, and you lose interest.
Yeah.
Right?
So there are many factors that
Unbelievable.
musician, guitarist doesn't even thinking about that things happen inside our guitar and it affect our tone, right? You prefer to use like both sensor, like piezo and the mic.
Yeah, and crystal, the full ceramic.
So you use that in your R&D process to making the amp too.
Yeah, sure, because I have my reference instruments and my reference. I am the reference to really beat them very hard. I think maybe I beat the amps much harder than Tommy does, but Tommy beats them also quite a lot.
Yeah.
And something like this you have to test in an environment where it works at its limits. If you work just using 10%, I mean everything works, right? But we you have it working at its limits.
Yeah, I ask this question because like if someone really want to hear what you engineer and what also you hear from the amp, so they can try use the mix system between mic and the sensor to test the amp, so they hear like something similar to what you are here and you want the world to hear.
Yeah.
Okay. So and after that, after the sensor, the pickup, it come to the preamp, right? And in acoustic guitar, there are some of the system they have an onboard preamp, and some are not. Some are the passive one. This amp need to handle both like passive signal and active signal, right?
There's several. Again, it is more complex than we always think of. There's different things to pay attention to. A piezo has a certain characteristics, so it doesn't really matter if it is a passive, like a disc positioned somewhere, or if it is under the bridge. It's the same principle, but it matters to the degree that the position where it is sitting has an impact on the tone. When you attach something to the top, there is always something like a curve around it. It's like in mental, so to speak. While when it's sitting under the bridge, it's rather the straight signal and a little bit of ambient you can hear, but not to the degree that you really think you are already in a large hall just because the sensors are attached to the top. And when you attach something to the top, it depends on the position you attach it to. Sounds different at every kind of position. So let's say the piezo concept is the same, though I definitely prefer to have it under the saddle. That's one thing. To the preamps, well, there's many ways to roam, as we say. And in electronics, even though there is not hundreds and hundreds of different solutions, but there is a few that you can go along with. And they all will end up at a result, because the preamp's result is to say, I want to amplify my signal, let's say factor 10. And then you can measure at the end of the day, yes, 1, there's 10, blah, blah. And the preamp has done it. Okay, that's the simple task. Because depending on the actual power of the source, consider microphones a very, very small power. So you have to do something to bring the power up to the level of the standard. Let's call this standard 0 dB. Right?
Okay.
So there you have to bring it up, which is a certain, from the point that you are to 0 dB is a certain amplification goal that you have to achieve. So that's one purpose of the preamp. Depending on how you design it, the circuits itself, they have an impact on the sound, but the engineer is not necessarily interested in sound, he's interested in the principle. So that's one thing. And there is also two approaches. When you are in the hi-fi world, you want to have a power amplifier, let's say, take the power amplifier as an example, which is completely flat and completely stable against each and every load that you attach. So if you have an 8-inch speaker, 4-inch, 2-inch, 6, ohm speaker, the power amp performs in the same way. Both. It's like a block. Right. Many amps, like the Capo as well, they work with integrated power amp chips, which have all the security elements and everything with it. But they are load sensitive. That means, depending on the load, their reproducing curve is slightly different. So again, you can think, maybe this is a defect which needs to be corrected. Maybe it's even an advantage. Because for the sound that I like, maybe I would start to filter something which by nature, just to the load that is connected to the power amp, is already eliminated. So we have a better solution. The same applies for preamps. So we have preamp circuits where the source doesn't play any effect at all. They're kind of neutral towards the source. They do the amplifying thing and that's it. So, and there is circuits which are kind of source sensitive. It's up to you to check out what is of advantage. And with my new systems, and I have updated all, even the dot and the hash are updated with preamp stages which are source sensitive. And I find that the combination of this kind of preamp and this pickup source, the sensor, help the sound to improve. And this is little things like the bass range is more present, more transparent, more clear. It has even more substance, it has more body. And that's just due to the different circuit. So a preamp is important. When you have a preamp signal from the guitar already, because there's onboard preamps, well, you have to live with what the designers came up with. And some of them do whatever is possible in the range for $399, and they feed this up with features to make it more interesting, tuners and phase and whatever there is. Where I think there's no real need for that, but that's a different story.
Yeah. So when you design TM, you need to think about that some of the guitar they have onboard preamp, and some are passive, no preamp.
This is why the input stage of the Capo is special. It can handle passive and any kind of active signals and line signals. And that's just a matter of how you design the stage to make it possible that these elements all can be handled. One speciality, if I may add this in the line of thought, the input stage is extremely powerful. So most people are shocked when they are confronted with my designs, first of all, because the gain, you just need very, very little, and it's already it's already right there. That's a reflection of so many weak signals in the industry. So you have enough headroom to bring it up and still have an acceptable sound. Some people complain that they play pickup system and the clipping indicator doesn't work. Because the signal is actually so low that you have to raise the gain full to get any volume at all. On the other hand, I like this to be so how can I say, it feels like the amp is permanently on the jump. Right?
It's ready to push everything out.
Immediately, right? And whatever you do, if it's pianissimo or if it's whatever, the amp is there, boof. And that's part of the liveliness as well.
Yeah, okay. And then once the signal get into the preamp section, you amplify it by gain, and then you got the EQ. Is the acoustic amp EQ section different from the electric guitar amp or the console?
Well, maybe from an electric guitar amp that is possible. I don't know where the frequencies are, because with an electric guitar amp you never try to capture the whole frequency range. With an acoustic signal we want to capture a much wider range of frequencies. That's number one. But basically it's very comparable to a console. Right? If the bass is situated at 100 hertz or 80 hertz, that doesn't make a big difference in a certain way, because it depends on the whole resonance system that you have. When you have more danger in the 100 hertz area in catching resonance, humming and all this kind of stuff and vibration, then I would position my bass a little bit aside, that I would avoid that. But it's basically you have a bass, let's say like in hi-fi, 100 hertz, 10 kilohertz, and mostly shelving filters with possibly a kind of fixed parametric in the middle. That's basically it. But it is clearly designed, number one, that you can use the full range. So that's a musical equalization, like you would have on your hi-fi, for example. Never sounds bad at any position, because the job with this tone control equalization, I think, is not the proper term for it, even though we use it. The whole purpose is to adjust the tone to my personal sound feeling. Sometimes I want a little bit more of this and a little bit more of that, as you do with your hi-fi. And basically, you set it with your hi-fi once and you don't change it all the time. That's the same here. The other thing where you really need filters, let's say equalization and precise filters, that's when you consider that there is an audio problem, either in the room or in your whole arrangement of all the instrument. Let's say you have a resonance at 200 hertz and you need to get rid of it, then you need an appropriate filter to cut it out and do this as narrow as possible so that it doesn't interfere with the total signal and stuff. There's two different purposes. This is I would rather say tone control than equalization, but language-wise, equalization is so common that we also
so
say
we understand. And that's why you shouldn't put your acoustic guitar to the electric guitar amp, tube amp, right? It sounds bad to me.
Well, it sounds completely different. You have a different thing, you know, and you may like that. You may
in some situation,
like you know, so many blues players take harmonica and go through electric guitar amps, and the harmonica actually is also an instrument which has a wider range in frequency.
I see.
But they do it because it gives this little. So you're free to do it. It doesn't hurt the amp. It doesn't hurt the guitar. But it is something else that you have as a sound result at the end of the day.
But in the concept of design, like this one is more like wider frequency range.
Exactly.
Okay. And after the preamp, the EQ session, you go into the Poweramp.
Well, we call this signal processing path. You know, you have dynamic control a little bit in it, dynamic control as part of the amplifier to make sure that you cannot destroy the amp. You may have a little bit of filtering at the one or the other position. That's all completely legitimate because it's kind of sound design. You mostly have additional features, as we have an effect section as well. And this is also important because there's many effects that kind of add to the acoustic tone in a rather negative way because they increase the danger of feedback. So you have to be careful with the effect, also the effect design kind of, that it really adds nicely to the guitar and not endangers resonance points that the guitar has and then gets a signal that is uncontrolled. But basically this is part of the sound design as well, and you're absolutely right. The next part would be the power amp.
Normally, the electric guitar amp, they use the tube power amp section. But on acoustic, normally you use the solid state, right?
Yeah, we use it solid state for power amp as well.
Any reason behind?
To my findings, there's not really an advantage of using tube for acoustic instruments. Solid state is, number one, well developed at the time being. We see we have a wonderful spectrum of even harmonics in this even. That's beautiful. There's no real advantage of the amp getting warmer or smoother. Let's say the effect at the tube side is so minimum that I would rather look into the instrument side to get it warm and smooth. If the source doesn't deliver, the amp can't compensate for that. And then you have other technical reasons. They would be bigger, you have high voltage, you need transformers, all these kind of things which make the design completely different.
And that's end up like you got like a lighter amp, smaller side, you know, because of all this design. And then after the power amp section, it came to the cabinet, the speaker. What kind of speaker you put it in? Or you make it and
That's a special designed dual cone.
Dual cone?
There's one magnet, but it has a dual cones. It has a smaller cone glued inside besides the bigger cone.
It's not like the woofer and the speaker.
No, it's
but
not
it's
a
like
two-way thing.
เดี๋ยว insert ให้ดูนะครับ So you got like the bigger one.
The bigger cone.
The bigger cone and the smaller cone. Like the flower, sunflower, something like that.
Exactly, and they resonate. They add, say, a higher frequency range with it. So that's the combination. There's advantages of it. Let's say focus on the guitar. It represents the guitar sound tremendously well by nature. Because guitar doesn't have bass. Nobody believes that, or we think. And we think what we hear. But when we analyze the guitar sound, the body, the construction, let's say the box of the acoustic guitar limits the presence of the fundamental of the E string. So when we consider E 80, 82 hertz is our lowest on the guitar, we hear not the 80 hertz, we hear the octave above, and our audio system builds the fundamental from what we hear from the overtones, because it's way less. It's maybe half the volume, half the SPL that the fundamental generates in respect to the first fundamental, to the first resonance, and it is even the fundamental is stronger on the A string, which is just 30 hertz above. So I say that's quite significant in this respect.
Yeah.
So there is kind of a natural audio filter. The guitar is already a natural audio filter.
Yeah.
And so the speaker represents this natural audio filter. We have no intention to generate bass like 30 hertz.
Right.
Well, the guitar doesn't have it.
Yeah, it doesn't make sense to add the bass, right? So this one you got like 8-inch, right? The bigger one.
Yes, 8-inch. You can use a sub with it if you want. I wouldn't boost 30 hertz, for example, to make it bigger stuff. Yeah. No, but there's always a little bit of an advantage when you can naturally extend the lower range in the reproduction, and you could feel this a little bit, but it's not really necessary.
And also the cabinet also affect the sound, right?
Oh, yeah,
even the dimension and also the material that you're using.
That was one of the big differences, that I redesigned the cabinet and so provided an environment for the speaker to perform better. And this is why we have more power, we have a different sound, we have more bass, it's warmer than what I did before. So all in all, it's more pleasant, even though measurement-wise the differences are almost not verifiable.
After you making like one of the best acoustic amp in history, 30 years before, almost a year before.
92, I started in 92.
So I think 3 or 4 years ago, you have a chance to redesign the amp. What's your improve it?
What the improvement is?
Yeah, what's the improvement?
Well, the target was to get it warmer and more pleasantly sounding more pleasantly, because I like to compensate a little bit for my personal feeling is that a lot of acoustic guitar has become too brittly, too bright. It's not I don't know. Like the body of acoustic guitar has disappeared.
Yeah.
And when we started, there was a lot of body in acoustic guitars, right? So this was a completely different task. You needed to make happen that the projection was there, that you reach up the last guest in the audience. And this has changed. Now with these guitars, it's kind of rather annoying. And I try to get this completely out of the way. I try to get it way smoother, but still very direct, very present, very lively. That was one of the main goals. So we looked into each and every stage and speakers, input stage, everything, and try to tweak here and there and here and there and compare. And then we got, that is the max in difference that you can get on this concept. You would have to change the speaker, you would have to change cabinet size, Poweramp, and everything to make something different. But in this compact and portable unit, so powerful, so multifunctional, that's, I think, the max that you can do.
Yeah, it's still like a compact size, very light. Yeah, and it sounds very good. It sounds very good.
Yeah.
Okay, one other question. What is the benefit of using this acoustic amp compared to plug it directly to the DI and go to the console? Because in general concept, it has a very wide range of the frequency.
That's also a matter of your wish or experience. Some people are just lazy and they don't want to carry an amp. You know, it's very convenient to have a DI, and many products are marketed special under acoustic DI and all of that. But mostly you don't know what's inside. Number one. A general basic difference between the two approaches is the following. Technically, I would say a desk is designed for microphones. So the beauty of a desk is really the microphone input stages, and the line-ins pretty much are average. They have no speciality, so to speak. And then you have the standard EQing, because you need to EQ the whole orchestra, right? And that needs to be relevant for these purposes. So I think from a sound and from a dynamic point, a system that is completely focused on the pure acoustic instrument, an amp has only advantages. So the sound is more lively, more direct, more powerful. And side effect is you are the master of your tone.
Yeah.
You have it
control
there, you put it, and you tell the sound man, you know what? This is the signal. Don't do anything with it.
Yeah.
Poof.
Yeah.
And in many cases, the sound man will come back to you and say, you know what I did to your sound? Nothing.
Yeah.
I just got it in, put the fader up for volume. Poof, there we
Yeah.
go.
So when using this amp with the console and the full rig, you can put the line out after the preamp, right? There are line out and also the balance out too, like XLR out,
DI
out.
for per channel, yes, and line out as
So actually, this also can be used as a DI.
Yep,
But
that's
with
true.
the special design for line input from the acoustic
Exactly,
instrument
exactly.
and the well-designed EQ.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly. So it's matched within the signals as well. When you have something general, you have to be prepared for everything. You don't know what signal is coming on, so you have to have a lot of attenuation and damping and blah blah blah, and be careful and proportion blah blah. We know exactly what's coming in. So this is why we can adjust it accordingly.
Yeah, I really appreciate learning this point today. That
My pleasure.
we don't even know what the DI did to our sound. Everyone told us to plug to the DI, and you hear the sound from the monitor. And if you need something, you ask the sound guy to deal with it. But
Well, the sound guy may be lazy as well because he does 300 shows a year and he just wants to discuss with you. And he wants to have something he relies on. And he has his DI box, he knows what's happening. So plug in whatever you want to plug in. I know what I can do on the desk and boom, that's it. There's all a lot of very, very common purposes behind these. Right?
It's good to try the special design
Exactly. Absolutely.
amp for acoustic guitar.
Absolutely.
นะครับเพราะฉะนั้นทุกคนนะครับถ้ามีโอกาสมาลองนะครับมาลองได้ที่ทีระมิวสิกนะครับ so we here now at the Tira Music.
Music.
Yeah, they are Tira Music is a distributor for
Yes.
Udo Roesner in Thailand.
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely. And we have a long, very friendly, very fruitful relation. That's a lot of joy. I feel like at home with friends. Always when I come to Thailand, and I find so much interest as well. And I hope that with COVID going down, and maybe the world is getting a little bit more peaceful than it is at the moment. We'll have a lot of opportunity to meet again and discuss these things in presence, face to face, and also exchange music. So I think that's the most important thing.
Yeah, and I just say that it feels like very friendly, like family or something like because tomorrow we're gonna see Tommy at his concert too, right?
Sure.
Yeah, and next time you came, you have some secret project that you're working on.
Yes.
The special design pickup.
Yes.
And it's like I tried it and I was blown away. And also you doing on making your own guitar.
Yeah.
On your website. There, there's picture, but nothing. I cannot click to see.
No. We took it off because so many people were asking, and the clue is actually it's a guitar-shaped baritone guitar.
Yeah.
So it's a different sound character, which is great, and the mechanics, so to speak, is like you are used from a small OEM guitar. So nothing where you have to have, let's say, extra long scale, and so that's a fun, and it's a project which is in admiration for Steve White. Some of you may recall him from many years ago, one of my dearest friends, and one of our artists which I was traveling with over the world, and we were an unbelievable musician. And we got this idea on a flight back to together. So, and we were able with the help of the luthier Tom Launard, who unfortunately died as well a couple of years ago, to make a first prototype. And this idea still has not left me. So I would like to show it to some crazy guitar players who would like to play something different.
Yeah. So I'm looking forward to try all of that and looking forward to talk to you next time.
That will be most likely even next year because I think we get the ball in play and we want to be there also for questions and answers. So maybe next time we arrange a workshop to have more people participate live in this. Yeah, wonderful.
Yeah, and looking forward if I have a chance to visit German. I would like to see your lab.
Yeah, please. Oh, you will be amazed.
Yeah.
Like a witch kitchen.
Yeah. Okay, thank you so much.
It has been my pleasure.
Right.
Okay, take all good care.
Yeah.
Stay safe and happy. And also you, everybody, all the very best. Keep smiling all the time. Life is tough enough. It's short and it's the only we have. So let's be friends and friendly and share music with each other. Thank you so much for your attendance.
ขอบคุณคุณอุโน่นะครับแล้วขอบคุณที่รับมิวสิกที่เอื้อเฟื้อสถานที่แล้วก็ช่วยประสานงานในการนัดคุยกับคุณอุโน่ครั้งนี้ด้วยนะครับขอบคุณมากนะครับใครอยากลองอุโดแอมก็มาที่รับมิวสิกได้เลยนะครับ